Hello, and welcome back to Virtual Azure Community Day Track 1. And next up is Rory Preddy. Hi, Rory. Oh, thank you, and we are so happy to have you here. And I'm particularly looking forward to your talk on on accessibility in combination with DevOps. So, can you explain a little bit who you are and what your talk is about?
Well, I'm a Microsoft developer advocate, and what that means is that I help Microsoft and also the developer communities empower organizations to use and to really take advantage of the tooling and technologies that Microsoft provides. In addition, Microsoft also has a diversity charter, and I lead the Middle East and Africa Diversity Charter for Accessibility. And one of the things that I try to do is empower developers to be able to use the Microsoft toolchain to create accessible development web apps and applications on our cloud platform. So the talk that we're going to do today, I'm going to show you how to do a DevOps toolchain using Java, and also a little bit about accessibility. And of course, if you've seen my talks, there's memes, there's programming humor, and we're going to have a good time, but we're also going to have a meaningful, deep discussion around how to actually create empathy for people who have accessibility requirements.
Cool. Well, thank you very much once again for joining us, and take it away, Rory.
Thank you so much, Suzanne. Okay, so you should all see my screen, and that's the new kind of dance we have in this COVID climate. Can you hear me? Can you see my screen? On my screen, you'll see that there is a QR code the size of a house. There's also a link that you can actually follow the slides and download the slide decks. And then you can also follow me on @RoryPreddy for my Twitter profile. And my Twitter profile, I mix memes and programmer humor along with meaningful actual cloud updates and accessibility updates. So follow me on Twitter, look at the links that we have here, and let's start with the talk, Accessibility for All. Now, I've been speaking on accessibility, using and testing your websites, and it occurred to me that I had to broaden my audience participation, and I really changed the topic to accessibility all, because it's not only developers that I was approaching, it's your business analysts, your testers, your project managers, everyone, because to be able to really raise a child, you know, the old idiom, you have to actually have a village, and it's the same with accessibility. You have to really involve the entire team to be able to do that. And that's really the topic that I want to show you today. But first, a little bit of a background. So I have achondroplasia or dwarfism. And for a very long time, I've been adopting the mindset of bolt on. Now, bolt on, you can see here, this is my midlife crisis, my 335i BMW. And I bolted on the pedals. Don't worry, they've only failed once. Really, I make a plan. You can see here, this is me, and I also bolt on. You can see I'm trying to actually reach the screen, and over here I'm trying to actually get some coffee, and that's kind of my goal, is to be able to live life without having to bother too much about inaccessible requirements. But recently, I really felt left out. You see, the world had started to adopt this digital disruption persona, and bolt-on wasn't sufficient anymore. You can see here, there's a joker missing here, and that is the recent joker. No, sorry, the one before joker, and I felt a little bit like that joker, and I felt a little bit left out, because we have been trying our best to actually make development inclusive. And it really started with the Agile Manifesto, the Manifesto for Agile Software Development, created in 2004 by really leads in our industry. And they said we are uncovering better ways of developing software by doing it and helping others to do it. Through this work, we come to value individuals and interactions over processes and tools, working software over customer documentation, customer collaboration over contract negotiation, and responding to change over following a plan. That is, while there is values and items on the right, we value the items on the left more. And the Agile Manifesto really came to fruition and kind of really drove the idea that we know how to build software. And the problem is that, well, we kind of got it wrong in a little bit of ways, because the bane of my existence is open offices. You can see here, here's a really good example of open offices. This one has a fish tank. Can you imagine how difficult that fish tank is to actually clean? We also learned how to clean whiteboards, these magnificent whiteboards with flappy things and everything like that. We also learned how to stick Post-it notes. Now, I've been on 1 or 2 courses on how to stick Post-it notes. The trick is you actually hold the Post-it notes, you take your finger, and you gently kind of take the Post-it note off to not disturb the glue. But this is not what the Agile Manifesto created or wanted to do. We wanted to achieve collaboration and synergy with all the different teams, because in truth, we suffer in software from complex and essential difficulties. As Brooks' seminal paper, No Silver Bullet, said that there are essential difficulties of complexity, changeability, conformity, and invisibility. And this is really summed up in the Hydra. The Hydra, and I like to call it the bug Hydra. The bug Hydra is once you have a bug and you chop its head off, and then you kind of go back and you push your software there, and then another kind of head arrives. And this is really what Agile tried to solve. But importantly, there's also something called the accessible Hydra. And the accessible Hydra is the same as the bug Hydra, except that when you fix an accessibility issue in production and you chop it off, something else happens. Because just like I handled bolt-on accessible issues in my life, what we had with the Agile Manifesto and the Agile movement is that bugs were also handled in bolt-on. So I'm here to show you how to not do it bolt-on, how to actually use it in the mechanism that it was intended to be able to create bug-free accessible software. To do that, let's start with aligned autonomy. And to do that, we need to align our organization's roles, teams, cadence, and architecture with our plan and practices. It's easier said than done. And it's kind of summed up in the book by Daniel H. Pigg. So let's give our teams 3 things, and we're going to discuss them: autonomy, mastery, and purpose. Because what we want to do is we want to give everyone Ikigai. If you don't know Ikigai, it's the synergy of what you're good at, what you love, what the world needs, and what you can be paid for, and passion, mission, vocation, and profession. We're going to look at how to drive autonomy, mastery, and purpose using the principles of Ikigai. So one of the things we need to look at what the world needs is empathy. You can see here, this is the Rick and Morty, and you can see there that Rick really isn't giving Morty, shame poor Morty, the empathy that he needs. And this is also kind of one of the topics that I want to drive here, because how can you drive Ikigai with what the world needs when we lack empathy? And now hear me out here. I'm not actually singling out everyone. What I'm trying to say is that it's very difficult to be empathetic when you aren't that person. That's the basics of accessibility, that it sometimes requires you to put yourself into the shoes of that person to understand. We all have side projects, so we get distracted. And what that does with these side projects is that instead of Ikigai, where you put your hands up to solve the world's empathy problems, the only people who are putting their hands up are preachers, bank robbers, DJs, cops, and roller coasters. We live in an empathy bubble. And that bubble is created because we can't take our mindset into the individuals who are experiencing those accessibility issues. And as a result, instead of Ikigai and the agile process, we fail in the inability to create accessible software. So this is the plan that I've got that is going to help us get Ikigai. Understand your organization's unique accessibility motivators, set achievable interim milestones, implement your tools, measure, improve, and automate. So first, let's start with the first topic of understanding your organization's unique accessibility motivators. But to do that, we really have to understand accessibility. What does it actually mean? You can see here, this is an inaccessible wheelchair ramp. And I need to start by explaining that accessibility is the design of products, services, and environments so that everyone, including people with disabilities, can fully experience them. It's not bolt-on. No one ever defined accessibility as bolt-on. And at Microsoft, we believe that by achieving accessibility, and we have a massive drive with hundreds of individuals that look at accessibility on a daily basis. By doing inclusive product and service design, then one level up on the accessibility chain is accessibility compliance, will increase productivity and innovation. And I'm going to show you how. So create that mindset that accessibility is not disability. Because the only time that I've ever felt disabled, and I asked my child, who's also, he's 9 and he's also got achondroplasia, dwarfism. I said, when do you feel disabled? And he said, only when something doesn't match my personal health condition. Because disability is not a personal health condition. You don't go to a doctor and say, hey, I'm not feeling too well. And the doctor goes, I think you have the disability. No, the only time that you feel disabled is when you have a mismatch human interaction that the bolt-on was created after the fact. So now that we've got the definition of accessibility and now that we've got what it is not, we can also look at what it is. And to do that, we can look at the Web Center of Accessibility Guidelines and look at the compliance levels to define accessibility. So we've got level A, deals with most basic web accessibility features, and that's creating alt tags on your images, for example. Level AA signifies the biggest and most common barriers for disabled users, and that would be creating captions or narrations on your video. And level AAA addresses the highest and most complex level of web accessibility. And I'm so proud to be speaking here at this conference right now with my own personal sign interpreter. And thank you so much for actually driving this, Suzanne and team, on being level AA with an interpreter. We also have principles. Perceivable, can you see it? So for perceivable is being able to create the correct text or lighting or color or the size of the captions. Operable, can you use it to be able to use a keyboard to navigate your website? Understandable, can you understand it? And it also involves ADHD, autism spectrum, robustly won't break future technologies. Taking your website or your app and making it go from landscape to portrait shouldn't actually break it. So we've looked at what is accessible with the WCAG features. Let's also look at your motivators. So one, legislation, and I always go with the reference of stick and carrot. So this is the stick legislation. So the US 21st Century Integrated Digital Experience Act and the EU Parliamentary Directory on Digital Accessibility said that all publicly facing civil sites have to be WCAG 2.1 compliant. Or, like Canada has done, you get a $100,000 fine. Remember what GDPR did? Remember everyone crazily created, this rush to do that? That's exactly what accessibility requirements are doing right now, with people rushing to be able to do the stick mindset. But there's also the carrot mindset. Bill Gates summed it up brilliantly by saying the quality of life. For most of human history, we put our innovative capacity into improving the quantity of life. More, bigger, consumption, bigger. Because we're living longer, our focus is starting to shift towards improving the quality of life. We have stick and carrot. I prefer to follow the carrot approach. Because with the carrot approach, we can create empathy. And there is emotional engagement we need to actually define. Remember the empathy bubble? Awareness of others' difficulties. So you have pity, sympathy, empathy, and compassion. How do we get to empathy and compassion and to get that level of ikigai to be able to create what the world needs? First of all, you need to create empathy labs. Remember when I said to you, we're all in an empathy bubble. The reason we're in that empathy bubble is because you actually physically have to create that mindset of, I understand what people are experiencing. You can see here, this is the empathy lab by our partner, by DQ Labs, and they're creating with your website, you can set it up that now you can feel what it feels like to have a motor disability and go to your website and see, is it actually navigable? You can also start to define these roles and these persona spectrums. Here's Ron, 82 years old, retired, multiple conditions, arthritis, losing his hearing, cataracts, hip replacement, doesn't use any assistive technology, and he needs help on the Chromebook. You can actually set up these personas, and you can start looking at them by going to that link there. Remember, all the slides will be given to you at the end of the talk, and you create these empathy labs to be able to shatter that bubble and also bring to fruition that ikigai. Here's some steps to help you. 1, recognize exclusion. Understand you're in an empathy bubble. 2, solve for one, extend to many. Remember what we said about the definition of accessibility? It leads to innovation. I'm going to show you how. By taking those persona spectrums and then applying it to your customers. Learn from diversity. There is no point in to be able to bolt on if you don't actually change your processes. So we've got our persona spectrum. Here we have a person who hasn't got access to use their arm. So it might be an amputee. It also might be someone suffering from an arm injury. Now, I've got a lot of repetitive strain on my arm from 25 years as a programmer. And then I've got a new parent who's holding and cradling their baby. And you parents, you have an accessibility issue. You have financial, spiritual, mental accessibility, especially in this COVID climate and having to watch your children run everywhere while you work. So we define that. And if you go to your manager right now and say, I want to cater for the person who has an amputee, he's going to say, but there's only 25 million of them this is the US stats for disability statistics. But then you can say to them, but the arm injury, the temporary disability has 13 million. The situational disability, the new parents, has another 8 million. That means if we cater for the person who has that one arm, that amputee, and we define that spectrum, we're actually catering for 21 million people. And this is really kind of the code for one, extend to many, because there are 1 billion people out there right now in the world that has accessibility requirements. When you take their friends and family who are heavily invested in their well-being, that's more than 3 billion people. Not catering for accessibility is not catering for those 3 billion people. Let's look at how you apply that persona spectrum onto your website and your application. So I've got a ticketing scenario. We've got registration, navigation, and checkout. You can see there is site landing, preference, registration, help, login. And this is a flight search. I actually did this for one of the largest airlines, one of our customers. Add to cart, help, checkout, ticketing, and experience. And then you superimpose our lack of mobility individuals, one arm, new parent, and arm injury, and suddenly your entire mindset changes, because what happened is that you start to really have the empathy lab for those individuals. Instead of when they land just having normal sight, you need to have responsive design. On registration, a capture. For preferences, font and color options. For the help, accessibility help desk. For login, a single sign-on. In navigation, for search flights, voice search. One button access for add to cart, callback help for navigation, then checkout, one button access, SMS and email for ticketing. And finally, remember we said learn from diversity, AI adjustment to understand what are the requirements of the individuals, what worked, what didn't work, and then get the AI to actually adjust and create empathy. And I actually have done quite a few talks, if you look at my YouTube videos, on how to create accessible AI who understand empathy. And what we do at Microsoft, we actually have an empathy team that builds into Cortana and a lot of our video assistants empathy. Because the last thing you want to do when you have an AI that isn't assisting you is scream at it. It should understand that you're suffering and that you have accessibility requirements. Let's also talk about how do you transform with these empathy practices. 1, create a central team to manage the transformation. execute an empathy program to drive motivation, make high-quality learning resources available and integrate these into onboarding, form a team of accessibility coaches to coach the agile teams, and finally, create an accessibility dashboard to measure progress. Let's look at milestones. We look at motivating factors. Let's look at milestones. How do you define milestones with a project or building software? So normally you can see here, this is built on. And we do a milestone in accessibility testing and development right at the end, shippable project, deploy the system, bolt on, we have an issue, just leave it alone. We're suffering from the Hydra, we're suffering from the empathy bubble. I'm going to show you how to actually lift. And we have really been, have a revolution recently with shift left mindset, shift left for quality, for development, for DevOps, shift left to be able to go in the beginning of your system design and have a small investment instead of a large investment in your backlog design, coding, and testing, so we don't have to do bolt-on. And then as a result, you'll see here, add accessibility into every step of your process, into UX research, UX design, into your actual agile processes. And you can do this with the tools that I'm about to show you. So, obviously, we all unit test. Yes. Okay. So we sometimes don't unit test, but I'm going to show you how to unit test for accessibility. So introducing the X Core. It's one of our partners from DQ Labs, the same people who do the empathy labs. It's an X Core. It's a JavaScript library, NPM packages, and with that JavaScript library, you can integrate it into all other major development frameworks: .NET, Java, TypeScript, C#. It scans a rendered DOM, reports the results back in JSON, and it's the same engine that I'm going to demo to you that Accessibility Insights uses. So you have your developer and your DevOps pipeline, you do your Yarn or .NET test onto your page, and then using Selenium or WebDriver or a number of other frameworks, it will actually test your page and bring back the accessibility requirements. And this is what it kind of looks like right now. You can go to github.com. We're going to do a demo on this now, X pipeline samples. And it brings back into DevOps in an accessible agile mechanism what your pass and fails in the beginning of your DevOps journey. You can create a report to your DevOps teams on their progress and linked to their actual tasks and executions. So I'm going to give you a demo now. And to do that, I've got two approaches. One, we're going to look at bolt-on, what you can still do, and to get a view of your website. And two is we're going to create the same bolt-on journey, except we're going to do it at the beginning of our DevOps journey. So we're going to go there. I'm coming out of PowerPoint, behave PowerPoint, minimize that. And I've got my Chrome. And I've got my little website here called City Lights. It's a nice little inaccessible before and after page to show you how to test using the bolt-on tool sets. And you can see here, this is City Lights, your access to the city. And I've got the inaccessible version open here, and it looks accessible. You can see there's a picture, but the picture doesn't have any alt. And the font is wrong. And over here, if I go inspect, you can see here, what they've done is instead of actually creating a accessible HTML, they've actually just used BR tags there. And instead of a linked list, they've just kind of violated the HTML to use that. So a screen reader for someone who's visually impaired wouldn't be able to actually read that. And I need to test that. I need to see what's going on. So you can actually get a tool that we've open sourced with partnership with DQ Labs, the Accessibility Insights for Web. It's a Chrome and an Edge add-on, and I can click on that. It'll give me all these checks that I can do. But what I want to do is I want to just get a nice overview of exactly what's wrong with this website. And I can go to FastPass, or I can do a detailed assessment, and there's some ad hoc tools. And I want to go to FastPass, and then I've got my automated checks. It runs it quickly, 44 issues, color contrast, no language, image alt, and it shows me it on the actual website. Now I can go here and failed ruse image out, and I can click on that. I can file the issue immediately into GitHub. I can copy the failure detail, and I can fix one of the actual issues. And we open sourced this about 4 months ago. So you can actually go into the GitHub repo and look at it. And this is bolt on after the fact. You can also check, let's just clear this up for a second. You can also check your tab stops for navigable. So we're going to click on that, and then we're going to click on tab stops. Now the accessible version here, if I go in here, just make sure that's on there. Tab stops. If I go to the accessible version and I go to tab stops, you can see it's navigable completely by tab stops. And if I go to the inaccessible version and switch on tab stops, because it's not actually navigable. So all of these tool sets, the accessibility insights for web, you can go to accessibilityinsights.io and create a Chrome or Edge add-on. And I'm going to show you how to take that exact engine and add it to a DevOps pipeline in the part of the next demo. Let's just close that and pin that and close you. And to start with, we have some projects. So the DQ Labs there, you can go into DQ Labs, and I've cloned the Axcore Maven project. I am a Java advocate. Whoop whoop, Java team at Microsoft. We're going to show you how to do this in Java. So I've cloned it there, and I've opened it up in my Visual Studio Code IDE, the best and most popular IDE in the world. And it's currently running here, and you can see here, I've got my clone, I've got my source and my POM. And in my source there, I've got my I've got my test folder there, and I've just got some inaccessible and accessible pages there. You can see there HTML, and I've got my normal page there. So let's just open that. Let's go open to the side. And we want to open Reveal in File Explorer. I want to show you what this actually looks like. So I open it up there. This is a test, Shadow DOM and DOM. This is a test with no violations. So we want to test this here. If I actually run the bolt-on test tool here, let's go run that fastpass. It should actually go, yay, nothing failed there. So we know that the page doesn't fail. Let's actually run this with a test here. So if I close that and I go back into my Visual Studio Insider, and I've got my tests here that I can run. Remember, they're using the same X engine, and then I can go example JUnit test, and I can go run tests actually inside there. So we're going to run tests against that page, and it should actually run. Let's actually stop that. Run test there, and it's running. I want to do output there. We want to go to terminal, debug console. There we go. And it's run it. It starts up Chromium, runs the test, and we have success. You can get the success in the test results there. You can see all of our tests actually pass. And this is great. Now I can run this in that DevOps pipeline. Rory, please show me how to do that. Great. Let's go in that. So let's minimize that. And now we got our Azure DevOps portal. You can see I've already done it there before. The rule of demos is always have a backup. But we're going to create our new project with that entire project that we just created. I'm going to make it publicly accessible, and I'm going to call this VACD-RPZA. I'm going to use Git as my version control, a basic work item, go create. Now, depending on if everyone can switch their torrents off and their DevOps pipeline, this will determine how fast this goes. And then I'm going to go, okay, I've got my dashboard, and I can also on my dashboard obviously create build pipelines and everything. We'll do that a little bit later. I want to create my pipeline there for my build. I'm going to go create pipeline. And I want to use GitHub because I've already got a YAML file that I've got in that. Remember on my Visual Studio here on my project, I've already kind of defined my, let's go show you that, my YAML pipeline here. There's my YAML pipeline, uses Ubuntu, drives Maven, and basically just goes in and runs the Surefire test results there. So that's all you really have to do. Cool, and I want to call this, what's that project called? Axcore Maven, Axcore Maven, there we go. Validating responsibility, reviewing that. Okay, cool. It loves that it found the YAML already, and then I can go run. Creating your pipeline. It's going to execute it with the Azure pipeline. Let's go in and see what it's doing. Remember, as you get one free pipeline, and also with your Visual Studio Enterprise or Professional, you get kind of Azure DevOps is kind of free. Then you got your jobs, starting jobs. You can see there initializing it, downloading the project, checking out the project, going into my Maven project. Remember, this could be .NET, this could be TypeScript. I've got examples of all of those projects. It's going to download all the Maven dependencies. Then it's actually going to go into testing. And then finally, it's going to, well, there we go. There's the test. It's going to take a bit long. So test run 2, and then it's going to start. And I've already kind of got a result of this, because this is quite an extensive testing strategy. If you remember in my Visual Studio Insiders edition here, when we go to test, we've got an extensive test case there. We don't want to wait for that. We want to go back into our projects that we already got there. Azure DevOps, I've already got the project running, and you can see here on my pipelines, I've got my Maven and also my TypeScript, and then I can go to my boards, my dashboards, overview of my dashboards, and I can actually go and create all my little widgets here. You can see my builds are passed, and then I can feed back those issues directly into my my work items, my backlogs, my sprints, my queries. All of this is available right now for you to go in any language that you want to make your system empathetic and not bolt on. So let's carry on. You can also use something called X matches, and this allows you to actually give your test cases to your business in Gherkin syntax. You can go to github.com, DQ Labs, X matches. So, and you can write it in given then when you actually access websites. So you can create it in Excel, create those test cases, give it to your business, and your business should be responsible to make those accessible web and application test cases using X matches. You can also use upfront instead of bolt-on pattern libraries. And pattern libraries, also from DQ Labs, allow you to, instead of actually looking at how to fix your problems upfront, your buttons and your links, to be able to create accessible web pages and apps. So we've looked at the tools and the practices that you can use. So let's, in summary, include users with disability in research. Understand you'll always have an empathy bubble, but you can actually get to that by looking at how individuals use your systems. Communicate design intent via the DevOps pipelines, via the issue creation, leverage a pattern library, leverage automated testing library like I've shown you today, automate accessibility testing in your DevOps pipelines, and measure your progress. It's a journey. Start now with the bolt-on tools with accessibility insights and just see if your app, Android app or web app, is actually accessible, and just start the journey. Have accessibility in retrospectives, and finally, go from a bolt-on design using the wrong tool for the right job to be able to creating that ikigai, where what the world needs is to start from an early stage, shift left quality with the carrot, and design for everyone for accessibility. In conclusion, empathy, shift left, and automate. You can access all of the information and my slide decks that I've just said today on https://aka.ms/all. You can follow me on Twitter. I thank you for your time, and I thank you for the interpreter that spent their time also today, and Suzanne and her team for the excellent conference that I've been a part on. And I'm willing to take your questions. Yeah.
So I forgot to unmute. So thank you very much, Rory, for this session. It's like your enthusiasm. People were mentioning it in the chat. You know, you're really passionate about this topic, and it's really contagious. So thank you very much for all the work you do. Now, I can imagine people were busy checking their website on accessibility. At least I hope they do. But can you repeat for those who missed it where they can check their website, the tool you mentioned?
Axe engine, and it's the exact same Axe engine that you can incorporate into your DevOps pipelines to actually test fully your accessible website apps and also Android apps.
Okay, wow, we use it on Microsoft.com, so that's like well tested. I can imagine. And there are also a lot of people watching from communities all over the world.
I missed you there. I think your mic's off again. There we go. Try again, Suzanne.
Hello.
Now it's on.
Testing 1, 2, 3. So there are a lot of people watching from all over the world, from communities all over the world. Do you have any takeaways for them, how they can make, for instance, their meetups more inclusive? So things they can start with tomorrow?
What we've seen in this COVID climate is that the world has gone remote. And people have started to take notice of accessibility requirements because we no longer have that point-to-point, face-to-face kind of climate. We're all going digital. So my challenge and my request to you is look at the basics first. Look at alt tags for your images, the Microsoft tooling, Word, PowerPoint, OneNote, Edge, Chrome, all has the ability to help you in that journey. And the same journey that Microsoft has taken under Satya Nadella, who's a huge accessibility advocate, is the same journey that we can actually help you with. So for more information, you can go and look at the slide decks that I have and on the tool sets and reach out to me. This is not only my job, my passion, my purpose, but this is my ikigai. This is my attempt to make the world into a better place for everyone in every organization.
Wow. Okay, so I'm gonna check the chat for the latest question. I saw one coming in. Are there any tools for checking accessibility for desktop applications?
Yes, there is. That exact tooling that I showed you, Accessibility Insights for Web, is available for both Windows apps and Android. So whatever I showed you there to look at font, navigable, is available for apps, is available for Android, and then with your DevOps pipeline, you can create that report that I showed you using all major languages. So if you're battling with the tool set, give me a shout. My DMs are open on Twitter. You can also look at my profile on GitHub, on many different social medias, and reach out to me. Let me help you. Can't hear you.
Yeah, he cracks jokes on Twitter, so do follow him on Twitter at Rory Preddy. Another question which came in is, how can you convince a stakeholder that accessibility is important?
Do you remember those persona spectrums? Remember the person who was an amputee? It's very hard to look at monetary value linked to a persona spectrum. But for example, the silver generation. So the silver generation is our parents, our grandparents, and they're actually proving to be a considerable driving force in economical viability to code and accessibility. They command more than $1 trillion of expenditure, and these individuals have failing sight, they have Alzheimer's, they have all of these mobility issues, and we need to create accessible requirements just for them. So you start off with that. Look at the broad kind of statistics around accessibility and do your research. Go into those persona spectrums. Look at exactly how each one actually affects your system. And if you can actually create your accessibility driven application, what you'll find is that you can solve for one, extend to many with persona spectrums, and be able to really look at the trillions of dollars in accessibility software creation that is right now being mandated with stick and carrot, ideally carrot, to be able to look at how you can financially benefit from that.
Okay, that's something to get started with, I think, and to like really motivate people to dive more into this topic. So if you want to get started with this, can you one more time mention, where people can start reading more on this topic?
Microsoft.com/accessibility. So that's the easiest way for you to get started. You can use the tool sets, but it's a journey. There is no shame in understanding that we all live in an empathy bubble. The only difficulty is to really start to deny the fact that we're all human. And this is a part of Microsoft's journey in diversity, is to bring your true self to the office. And once you do that, once you actually allow people to bring their true self, then diversity doesn't actually happen as a bolt-on, but rather as a means to create innovation and to be able to improve the quality of life.
Yeah, and to keep on discussing, of course, this topic, like we did a lot of discussions around having, for instance, Virtue as a community day. You just keep on learning from each event you do and each bit of feedback you get. Well, thank you very much, Rory, for your talk. People loved it. I loved it too. We are going to a short break. Now, people who have watched the break before saw a little animation about Azure Badger for Azure Heroes. Azure Heroes is our Microsoft program where you can be recognized on activities for our developer community, and for instance on being an inclusive leader, which of course matches good with this topic, and for instance on public speaking or organizing events or just being awesome, and of course for joining this event. And we have a special exclusive badger. It's the Summer Learner Badger, and you can only get it this summer. So scan the QR code. It will be showed just before the break. And hope to see you after the break with a great talk by Barbara.
大家好
¿Cómo está?
Servus.
Hi.
Hi.
Bonjour.
Gracias.
Hi.
Hoi. Ik ben
I'm
Floor.
Ryan Stropek from Austria.
日本からこんにちは。私は不破孝之です。
Ciao, sono Stefano Tempesta, dall'Australia.
Hallo, ik ben Albert Schot uit Nederland.
Hi, I'm Maarten Goed from the Netherlands.
Hi, ¿cómo está? I'm Ruby Jane Cabagna from the Philippines.
Hola. Hello.
Hey there.
Hola, soy Sebastián Pérez de Argentina.
你好，我是胡浩，来自中国上海。
Hi, I'm Sarah Lynn from Scotland.
Bonjour, I'm Charlene from France.
Hello, I'm Ruth from France.
שלום, אני ערן ספילר, מישראל.
from the Netherlands.
Bonjour, I'm Olivier from
Hi, I'm Gilbert Villiers of Gold Coast, Australia.
For everyone who is upskilling this staycation, we have something very special. The Summer Learner Badger, and you can earn one for joining this event. Scan the QR code, which will appear on your screen, and claim your badger. Azure Heroes is a Microsoft program for recognizing community efforts.
大家好，